From the very first moment she saw him, soaked from the rain and trembling as he gripped the edge of the cafe door, 19-year-old Alina felt something inside her shift, something unexplainable, like life was about to take a turn she could never predict. The storm outside was violent, but the heaviness in the old man's eyes felt even more fierce, as if he carried decades of storms inside him. The cafe was nearly empty, the dim lights flickering softly across the wooden floor, and for a few seconds time seemed to stand completely still. It was just a frail stranger fighting the weight of the world, and a girl who believed that no one should have to fight alone. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and life-changing miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your support truly motivates these heartfelt stories. Alina worked double shifts at the tiny family-owned cafe on the edge of town. She never complained even when the hours dragged and her feet ached because she needed the money. Every single rupee mattered. After her father passed away suddenly 2 years earlier, life had collapsed into unpaid bills, hospital debts, and a grieving mother who tried to hold the family together with trembling hands. Alina became the backbone of the house at an age when she should have been planning college, friends, and dreams. But dreams felt too expensive. Reality demanded survival. Despite everything, she carried a quiet gentleness in her eyes. She believed that even the smallest kindness could ripple through the world and return in unexpected ways. She had no idea that today, her belief would be tested in ways she could never imagine. The old man shuffled inside and sat in the far corner, his thin coat dripping water onto the floor. His hands trembled as he reached into his pocket, his face tightening with frustration. He couldn't find the money he thought he had. When he finally looked up at Alina, embarrassment washed over his features, and he whispered that he wouldn't be able to pay for anything after all. Something in his voice broke her heart. It wasn't embarrassment. It was defeat, as if this one moment was simply another blow in a long line of invisible wounds. Without a second thought, Alina walked over with a warm cup of coffee and set it gently in front of him. She smiled, a soft, reassuring smile that told him he wasn't a burden, he wasn't invisible, and he wasn't alone. "It's on me," she whispered in her heart, though she didn't say the words aloud. The old man looked at her with eyes slowly filling with tears, as if he hadn't felt simple human kindness in years. She returned to her counter and pretended not to notice him wiping his face with the sleeves of his worn-out coat. While the rain hammered against the windows, the cafe glowed with warmth and the faint aroma of fresh pastries. Alina continued wiping tables, taking orders, and checking the oven, all while glancing at the old man every few minutes. Not because she pitied him, but because she sensed something delicately fragile about him, something that made her want to protect him, though she didn't know why. Little did she know, the man she'd just shown kindness to was Rayyan Halim Khan, one of the country's most secretive billionaires, a man known for building empires in silence, giving anonymously to the poor, and disappearing from the public eye for years at a time. He had recently lost his wife of 4 decades, the woman who'd shared his journey from poverty to power. The pain of her absence hollowed him out, leaving him wandering through life with an aching heart and a quiet desire to find someone who still carried the light of genuine goodness. For the first time in many years he was searching, not for wealth, not for status, but for a soul connection that could remind him of who he once was. He had left his mansion that morning without his chauffeur, without his expensive coat, without anything that marked him as the billionaire the world feared and admired. He wanted for a few moments to be nobody, to be an old man with nothing but a broken heart. And it was in that moment of his anonymity that Alina touched his life with an act so small it seemed almost insignificant, yet profound enough to pierce the walls he had built around himself. As the hours passed, the storm quieted, but the old man remained seated, sipping his coffee slowly with a kind of reverence, as if he had forgotten what warmth tasted like. When he finally stood to leave, he glanced at Alina again, this time with an expression she couldn't quite describe. Respect? Gratitude? Something deeper, lingering in his gaze. He didn't say a word. He simply nodded and quietly walked out into the gray, misty air. Alina didn't expect to see him again, but life had a different script written for her. The next morning began like any other. She woke before dawn, prepared breakfast for her mother, helped her younger brother get ready for school, then hurried to the cafe. She wasn't expecting anything extraordinary. In fact, she barely slept last night due to worry. Rent was due, electricity bills were stacking up, and her mother's medications were becoming too expensive. Life felt like a constant balancing act on a thin wire. When she arrived at work, her manager, a strict, impatient woman named Shabana, was standing at the counter holding a letter. She looked at Alina with an expression of disbelief and curiosity. "Someone left this for you," she said, handing the envelope over. Alina hesitated, her hands trembling slightly as she opened it. The paper inside was thick, elegant, and carried the faint scent of expensive cologne. The moment she unfolded it, her breath caught in her throat. The letter stated that she had been selected for a special scholarship program, full coverage for her dream degree, living expenses paid, guaranteed employment after graduation, and a monthly stipend for her family. There was no sender name, no signature, nothing but a simple line at the bottom: "For your kindness." Her heart raced. She didn't tell anyone about the old man yesterday. She didn't expect anything in return, but somehow he found her. Over the next week, her life slowly began to shift. The scholarship team contacted her, her family cried with joy, and Alina felt like hope had finally returned to her home. But a part of her couldn't stop thinking about the man, the stranger with sad eyes and trembling hands. She wanted to thank him. She wanted to tell him he changed her entire world with a single act of compassion, but she didn't know where to find him. One rainy afternoon, very similar to the day they first met, the cafe door opened again, and there he was. This time, he wasn't in a worn-out coat. He wore a crisp, tailored suit, a polished watch, and carried an aura of confidence that filled the entire space. But his eyes, those soft, gentle, grateful eyes, were exactly the same. Alina froze. He walked toward her slowly, each step echoing with quiet purpose. When he stood in front of her, she felt a strange mix of nervousness and comfort. He apologized for surprising her. He explained that he came back because her kindness reminded him of his late wife, the only person who ever offered him love when he had nothing. He told her he wanted to repay her in a way that could truly change her life, that he had been searching for genuine goodness in a world full of masks, and she had given him hope without even knowing who he was. He then revealed his identity. Alina felt the ground shift beneath her, but what shocked her even more was not his wealth. It was his sincerity. He wasn't looking at her with expectations. He wasn't trying to impress her. He simply stood there, quietly thankful, deeply moved, and surprisingly humble. Over the next few weeks, Rayan began visiting the cafe occasionally. Not as a billionaire, not as a man offering her charity, but as someone who admired her resilience and warmth. He shared stories of his late wife, the love they had built, the struggles they had overcome. Alina shared her own life, her father, her dreams, her fears. Their bond grew gently, naturally, like a flower blooming after a long winter. Rayan never crossed any boundaries, never made her uncomfortable. Instead, he supported her studies, encouraged her goals, and helped her family discreetly without ever making them feel dependent. To him, this wasn't charity. It was gratitude, pure and profound. Months passed. Somewhere along the journey, the ache in his heart began to soften. The loneliness that had haunted him for years slowly dissolved, replaced by the warmth of companionship he hadn't felt since his wife passed. And though he never said it aloud, it was clear he had started to care for Alina in a way that went beyond gratitude. It was gentle, respectful, deeply emotional, and rooted in the belief that two souls can meet at the most unexpected moment and change each other forever. But Alina didn't see him as a billionaire or a man looking for love. She saw him as someone who believed in her when she had nothing left to believe in herself. Someone who showed her that kindness never goes unnoticed, even if it takes the world by surprise. As her graduation approached, Rayan invited her and her family to a small private ceremony he had arranged. It wasn't grand or extravagant, just intimate and heartfelt. When Alina walked onto the stage in her cap and gown, she saw him standing in the front row, clapping with pride, tears in his eyes, and a smile she had never seen before. In that moment, she realized something life-changing. The cup of coffee she offered him in a moment of kindness had returned to her as a lifetime of blessings. And for Rayan, the warmth she gave him had brought him back to life. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your support helps these emotional stories reach more people. Before you read the final emotional lines, please comment below. Do you believe one small act of kindness can change someone's entire destiny? Sometimes life tests us with storms so heavy that we forget the sun still exists. But kindness, no matter how small, becomes the light that breaks through. Alina didn't know she was saving a heart in pain. Rayan didn't know he was discovering a soul that would restore his faith in humanity. Two strangers met in a quiet cafe on a rainy day, and together they rewrote each other's destinies. And this story will forever remind us the smallest kindness can become the biggest miracle.